I woke to the sound of breathing, not my own, but many small, synchronized breaths filling the air around me. The early morning light filtered through the thin curtains of my bedroom, casting long shadows across the floor. Before I opened my eyes, I felt them. The presence of many small bodies surrounding my bed, the slight shifting of weight, the occasional soft whine or yip. 20 pairs of eyes stared at me when I finally dared to look. Puppies. Wolf pups, to be exact. They formed a perfect circle around my bed, sitting quietly, watching me with an intelligence no normal wolf pups should possess. Their fur ranged from silver to black to russet, but their eyes, every single pair, glowed with an amber light that spoke of something ancient and wild. My heart hammered against my ribcage as I slowly sat up, pulling my blanket tight around me. The pack house had always been intimidating, but this was something else entirely. I'd only been here for 3 weeks, working as the new healer's assistant, learning the ways of the North Shadow Pack. As a human with a gift for herbal medicine, I was tolerated, but never truly welcomed. "Hello," I whispered, my voice hoarse from sleep. None of the pups moved. They simply watched, their collective gaze making my skin prickle with goosebumps. I reached for the silver pendant my grandmother had given me before she died, the only thing I had left of her. It was shaped like a crescent moon with a small herb bundle etched into its center. "For protection," she'd whispered as she pressed it into my palm. "And to remind you that even the smallest plant can heal the mightiest beast." I clutched it now, drawing strength from its familiar weight. The largest pup, with fur as black as midnight and eyes that seemed to see right through me, took a single step forward. In that moment I knew this wasn't normal. This wasn't just a strange prank by the pack members who loved to remind me of my outsider status. This was a test. The whispers had been circulating through the pack for weeks. Rumors that King Alaric, the alpha of alphas, ruler of all 5 major werewolf packs in the region, was seeking his Luna, his queen. A selection ceremony was coming, they said. An ancient ritual to find the one woman who could stand beside the most powerful alpha the werewolf world had seen in centuries. "But I'm human," I murmured to the pups, as if they could understand. "I'm nothing." My blonde hair fell around my face as I shook my head slightly. The pack barely noticed me as I mixed tinctures and sorted herbs in the healer's hut. I was invisible by design. It was safer that way. The black pup tilted its head, and for a second, I could have sworn it smiled. A sharp knock at my door made me jump. The pups remained completely still, unfazed. "Alara, are you awake?" It was Nora, the head healer and my mentor. "The ceremony begins in an hour. All females between 18 and 30 must attend." My mouth went dry. "I'll be there," I called back, though my voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Don't be late. The Alpha King himself will be present." Her footsteps retreated down the hallway of the pack house. The Alpha King, the most feared werewolf in all the territories. They said he stood nearly 7 feet tall in human form, with shoulders broad enough to block doorways and hands that could crush a man's skull. They said he hadn't smiled since the Great War 5 years ago, when he'd lost his family and ascended to the throne soaked in the blood of his enemies. They said his wolf was the size of a bear, with teeth that could tear through steel. They said many things about King Alaric. None of them suggested he would want someone like me. One by one, the pups stood. The black one, clearly the leader, gave a soft yip, and as if choreographed, they formed a line from my bed to the door. An escort. I slipped out of bed, painfully aware of my thin nightgown and bare feet against the cold wooden floor. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. In response, the black pup walked to my small dresser and pawed at the bottom drawer. I knelt and opened it, revealing a dress I'd never seen before. A simple gown of pale blue, like the sky just before dawn, with silver embroidery along the hem and sleeves. Beside it lay a pair of soft leather shoes. My breath caught. This was no accident, no prank. This was deliberate. "I can't," I said, looking at the pups. "I'm not one of you. I'm not what he's looking for." The memory of my arrival at the North Shadow Pack territory flashed through my mind. 3 weeks ago, I'd stumbled to their borders, half dead from exposure and grief after my village had been destroyed by rogue wolves. Only my grandmother's teachings had kept me alive in the forest, knowing which berries to eat, which leaves could stop bleeding, which bark could bring down a fever. When the border guards had found me, they'd been ready to kill me until I'd healed one of their wounded with nothing but the contents of my small pouch of herbs. The Alpha of North Shadow, a stern man named Thorn, had allowed me to stay, but only as the healer's assistant. Humans are weak, he'd told me, not bothering to lower his voice, but useful ones can earn their keep. I'd kept my head down since then. I mixed remedies, treated minor wounds, and made myself as invisible as possible. I ate alone, spoke only when spoken to, and never, ever mentioned my past. The black pup growled softly, snapping me back to the present. He nudged the dress with his nose. Fine, I sighed, reaching for the gown, but this is pointless. I dressed quickly, surprised to find the gown fit perfectly. The fabric was finer than anything I'd ever worn, light as air but warm against the morning chill. The shoes, too, seemed made for my feet. As I stood before the small mirror on my wall, a strange woman looked back at me. My long blonde hair, usually tied back in a practical braid, fell in waves around my shoulders. The dress made my pale skin glow and brought out the green in my eyes. Eyes that had seen too much sorrow for someone only 20 summers old. The pups waited patiently, their eyes never leaving me. What now? I asked, feeling foolish for talking to them as if they understood. The leader yipped again, and the line of pups reorganized, now forming a path to my door. I took a deep breath, slipped my grandmother's pendant around my neck, and followed them out of my small room. The pack house was unusually quiet as we moved through its halls. The few wolves we passed stopped and stared, their expressions ranging from shock to confusion to outright disdain. I kept my eyes down, following the pups as they led me not to the main hall where I assumed the ceremony would take place, but toward the rear gardens of the estate. "Where are you taking me?" I whispered as we passed through the kitchen, now empty of its usual bustle of activity. The pups didn't answer, of course, just continued their steady pace toward the garden doors. Outside, the morning had blossomed into full brilliance. The gardens of the North Shadow Pack were famous throughout the territories, acres of carefully tended flowers, herbs, and trees. It was here that I spent most of my days, harvesting ingredients for my remedies. But today, the garden had been transformed. A path of white stones led through the center, flanked by burning torches despite the daylight. At the end of the path stood a massive archway woven from branches and adorned with white flowers I didn't recognize. Beyond the arch, I could see figures gathering, dozens of wolves in their finest clothes. The ceremony. They'd brought me to the back entrance of the selection ceremony. My steps faltered. "I can't go in there," I said, panic rising in my throat. "They'll laugh at me. Or worse." The black pup turned, fixing me with those intelligent eyes. He growled softly, not threatening, but insistent. The other pups formed a semicircle behind me, cutting off any retreat. A tall figure emerged from behind the archway. Reed, the beta of the North Shadow Pack. His eyebrows shot up when he saw me surrounded by the pups. "Alara?" His voice held disbelief. "What are you doing here? And why are the sacred pups with you?" Sacred pups. The word sent a chill down my spine. I don't know, I stammered. I woke up and they were in my room. They led me here. Reed's eyes narrowed as he studied the scene before him. His gaze lingered on the black pup. "This is unexpected," he said carefully. "These are the Alpha King's own offspring, his pack's future. They've never shown interest in a human before." He paused, then added more quietly, "Especially not during a Luna selection." My knees felt weak. There must be a mistake. "The pups don't make mistakes," Reed said flatly. "If they've chosen to escort you, then you're meant to be part of the ceremony." From beyond the archway, I heard a horn sound, 3 long, deep notes that seemed to vibrate through the earth itself. "It's beginning," Reed said. "You need to join the other candidates." When I didn't move, frozen in place by fear, he added gruffly, "Now, Ilara." The pups surged forward, herding me toward the archway. Reed stepped aside, his expression unreadable. As I passed through the arch of flowers, the scent of them washed over me, sweet and strange, making my head swim for a moment. When my vision cleared, I found myself at the edge of a large clearing. In the center stood a massive stone altar, ancient and weathered. Around it, in a perfect circle, stood 20 young women, all werewolves, all beautiful, all looking far more confident than I felt. And beyond them, seated on a throne carved from a single massive tree trunk, was the largest man I'd ever seen. King Alaric, the alpha of alphas. Even seated, his presence dominated the clearing. Broad-shouldered and imposing, he wore no crown, just a simple silver band around his upper arm. His face was all hard angles, sharp cheekbones, strong jaw darkened with stubble, and eyebrows that seemed permanently drawn together in concentration or anger. His hair was dark as night, cut short on the sides but longer on top. But it was his eyes that caught and held me. Even from a distance, I could see they were an unusual color. Not the amber of most werewolves, but a piercing silver blue, like the heart of a flame or the edge of a frozen lake. Those eyes scanned the circle of candidates, and for one heart-stopping moment, they locked with mine. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't look away. Then a hand gripped my arm, breaking the connection. "What are you doing here, human?" hissed a voice in my ear. It was Sylvia, daughter of a high-ranking warrior in the pack. She had made her disdain for me clear from my first day. "This ceremony is for real candidates, not herb-gathering strays." Before I could respond, the pups that had escorted me formed a protective circle around my feet, their small bodies pressed against my legs. Several of them growled at Sylvia, who dropped my arm as if burned. "The sacred pups," she whispered, taking a step back. "Why would they—" Her words were cut off by the sound of another horn. The clearing fell silent as an elderly man stepped forward, his robes marking him as a pack elder. "Today," he announced, his voice surprisingly strong, "we honor the ancient tradition of the Luna selection. King Alaric, Alpha of Alphas, Lord of the 5 territories, protector of the sacred bloodlines, seeks his mate, his queen, his Luna." The elder raised his hands, and the crowd that had gathered around the clearing bowed their heads. "The selection has already begun," he continued. "The sacred pups, born of the Alpha's own royal line, but not of his blood, have spent the night searching. They have observed, they have judged, they have chosen those worthy of consideration." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. The black pup pressed closer to my leg. "Let the worthy step forward," the elder commanded. The other candidates moved toward the stone altar with practiced grace. I remained frozen at the edge of the clearing. The black pup nipped gently at my dress, urging me forward. The others nudged at my legs and feet. Somehow, I found myself walking, each step feeling like I was moving through deep water. The grass was cool beneath my feet, the morning sun warm on my face. The other candidates watched me with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. As I reached the altar, I dared to look up again. King Alaric's eyes were fixed on me, his expression impossible to read. The elder approached each candidate, placing his hand upon their foreheads one by one, murmuring words too low to hear. When he reached me, last in the circle, he paused, surprise flickering across his weathered features. "A human," he said softly. Then his eyes dropped to the pup still faithfully circling my feet. "But chosen by all 20 sacred pups. Unprecedented." He placed his cool palm against my forehead. Unlike with the others, he spoke his words clearly for all to hear. "The smallest flower often holds the strongest medicine," my grandmother's words, the exact phrase she had spoken when she gave me her pendant. The elder's eyes widened as he saw the silver crescent at my throat. His hand trembled as he withdrew it. "The selection continues," he announced to the crowd, his voice shaking slightly. "Tonight, the moon rises full. Tomorrow, our king shall have his Luna." As the gathering dispersed, the candidates led away to prepare for whatever came next. King Alaric rose from his throne. The clearing emptied quickly, wolves bowing as they retreated, until only the king, the elder, and I remained, along with the 20 pups still at my feet. The Alpha King stepped toward me, each movement controlled power. He stopped a few paces away, studying me with those unnerving silver blue eyes. "What is your name?" he asked, his voice deep and resonant. I swallowed hard, clutching my grandmother's pendant. "Ilara," I whispered. "My name is Ilara, Block 2. Ilara." My name sounded different in his voice, something ancient and meaningful rather than the simple collection of sounds I'd answered to my entire life. King Alaric's gaze was piercing, as if he could see straight through to my soul, a human girl with the sacred pendant. The black pup at my feet padded forward and sat directly between us, looking up at the imposing king with what I could only describe as expectation. For a brief moment, I saw something flicker across the Alpha King's face. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "Your Majesty," the elder intervened, his voice respectful but firm. "The candidates must prepare for tonight's trials, even unexpected ones." His eyes flickered to me momentarily. King Alaric gave a single, curt nod, but his eyes never left mine. "See that she is properly instructed," he commanded. "All candidates will be treated equally until the selection is complete." He turned to leave, his movement causing the air around us to stir with his scent, pine and smoke and something wild that made my pulse quicken. At the edge of the clearing, he paused and looked back. "The pendant," he said. "Where did you get it?" My fingers closed protectively around the silver crescent. "My grandmother," I answered, surprised to find my voice steadier than I expected. "Before she died." Something unreadable passed over his features. Without another word, he disappeared into the trees, leaving me alone with the elder and the 20 pups still sitting faithfully around my feet. "Come, child," the elder said, not unkindly. "There is much to explain and little time." He led me back through the gardens to a part of the pack house I'd never entered before, a wing reserved for honored guests. The pups followed at my heels, a strange procession that caused every wolf we passed to stop and stare. "My name is Orion," the elder said as we walked. "I have served 5 Alpha Kings, including Alaric's father and grandfather before him. I don't understand any of this," I admitted. "Why would the pups choose me? I'm human. I don't belong here." Orion glanced at the pendant around my neck. "Perhaps you belong more than you know," he said cryptically. "The sacred pups are guided by old magic. They see what is hidden, what is true. If they have chosen you, there is purpose in it." We entered a spacious room with large windows overlooking the forest. A bath had been prepared, steam rising from scented water. Fresh clothes lay on a bed larger than any I'd ever slept in. "The trials begin at moonrise," Orion explained. "Rest. Prepare yourself. A guide will come for you." With that, he left, closing the door behind him. The pups made themselves comfortable around the room, some curling up on cushions, others exploring the space with curious noses. Only the black one stayed by my side, watching me with those 2 intelligent eyes. I sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. Less than an hour ago, I'd been the invisible human girl who mixed remedies and kept to herself. Now I was a candidate to be the Luna of the most powerful werewolf in the territories. "This is madness," I whispered to the black pup. "I don't belong here. I'm not what he needs." The pup tilted its head, then jumped up beside me on the bed. It pressed its nose against my pendant, then looked up at me expectantly. "My grandmother's pendant? Is that what this is about?" I removed the silver crescent from my neck, studying it in the light streaming through the windows. The etched herb bundle caught the sunlight, seeming to glow for a moment. "It's just a family heirloom, a reminder of her teachings." But even as I said it, I remembered the elder's reaction, the way his hand had trembled when he'd seen it. There was something more to this pendant, something I didn't understand. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. A young wolf girl entered, carrying a tray of food and a stack of books. "For your preparation, miss," she said, her eyes wide as she took in the pups scattered around the room. "Elder Orion said you would need these." She placed the tray and books on a small table, then hurried out, closing the door behind her. I approached the table. The books were old, their leather bindings cracked with age. The top one bore a title in faded gold, "The Ancient Rites of Luna Selection." My stomach tightened. This was real. I spent the next several hours reading, trying to absorb as much as I could about werewolf traditions and the role of a Luna. According to the texts, the Luna was more than just a mate to the Alpha. She was the heart of the pack, the balance to his strength, the compassion to his power. Where the Alpha led through dominance, the Luna led through connection. The trials, it seemed, were designed to test these qualities: wisdom, compassion, strength of spirit, and connection to the pack. Different for each selection, they were crafted to reveal the true nature of each candidate. As evening approached, another knock came at my door. This time it was Nora, the head healer. "Ilara," she said, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion. "I've come to help you prepare." "Oh, Nora," I breathed, relieved to see a familiar face. "Please tell me what's happening. Why did the pups choose me? Why did the elder react that way to my pendant?" Nora closed the door behind her, then sat beside me on the bed. The black pup, which had hardly left my side all day, watched her carefully. "I don't have all the answers," she admitted. "But there are legends, stories passed down through the generations of healers." She glanced at the pendant. "It's said that long ago, before the great division that separated humans from werewolves, there was a line of women who could heal both species. They wore the crescent moon and herb bundle as their symbol. My grandmother was a healer," I said slowly. "She taught me everything I know, but she never mentioned any connection to werewolves." "Perhaps she was protecting you," Nora suggested. "After the division, humans with such connections were often targeted by those who feared their power." The memory of my village burning flashed through my mind. The smell of smoke, the screams, my grandmother pushing me toward the forest edge. "Run," she'd whispered. "Take the pendant. Remember what I taught you." "The rogues who destroyed my village," I said, my voice barely audible. "They weren't just killing indiscriminately, were they? They were looking for something, for someone." Nora's silence was answer enough. "But that doesn't explain why the pups would choose me for this." I gestured around the room, at the fine clothes laid out for the evening ceremony. "The sacred pups are born to the pack, but not to any one wolf," Nora explained. "They belong to all, yet answer only to the true Alpha. They see what remains hidden to the rest of us." She looked down at the black pup. "And they've never unanimously chosen a candidate before." Before I could ask more questions, the door opened again. A tall, elegant woman entered. Lady Freya, the pack's current Luna regent, who had been acting as female alpha since the death of the previous king and queen. "It's time," she said, her voice cool but not unkind. Her eyes lingered on the pups, particularly the black one still sitting beside me. "I see Onyx has taken a special interest in you." "Onyx?" I repeated, looking down at the black pup. "The firstborn of the sacred litter," Lady Freya explained. "He leads the others, as is his right." She approached and held out her hand. "Come, the moon rises, and the trials must begin." I followed her through torch-lit corridors and out into the gathering darkness. The pups formed a protective circle around me as we walked. Ahead, I could see a large bonfire burning in the center of what appeared to be an ancient stone circle, older even than the pack house, with moss-covered pillars rising toward the darkening sky. The other candidates were already there, dressed in ceremonial attire. They stood in a semicircle facing the fire, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and nerves. Several cast disapproving glances my way as I joined them. "A human has no place here," I heard one whisper. "The pups made a mistake," another agreed. I kept my eyes forward, focusing on the flames. Beyond the fire, seated once again on a throne, this one carved from black stone, was King Alaric. His silver blue eyes reflected the firelight, giving them an otherworldly glow. Elder Orion stepped into the circle, raising his hands for silence. Behind him, several wolves carried in what looked like 20 small wooden chests, placing them in a line before the fire. "The first trial begins," the elder announced. "The trial of wisdom." He gestured to the chests. "Each sacred pup has chosen a problem that faces our territories, a challenge that requires not force, but understanding. Each candidate will select a chest, open it, and propose their solution to the issue contained within." My heart sank. While I had read about werewolf traditions and Luna duties for hours, I knew little of the current political landscape of the territories. How could I possibly provide wisdom about issues I barely understood? The candidates stepped forward one by one, selecting chests and receiving scrolls from within. Each read their challenge aloud, then offered their solution. They spoke of border disputes, resource allocation, justice for crimes between packs. Their answers were confident, knowledgeable, clearly prepared. All too soon, it was my turn. I approached the remaining chests with trepidation. The pups still circled my feet, and to my surprise, Onyx nudged me toward a specific chest, the smallest, made of dark wood with silver hinges. I opened it with trembling fingers and removed a small scroll. Unrolling it, I read the single question written there. What is the greatest threat to the future of werewolf kind? I looked up, meeting King Alaric's intense gaze across the fire. The entire gathering had fallen silent, waiting, taking a deep breath. I answered from my heart. Division, I said, my voice growing steadier as I continued. Not just between werewolves and humans, but the divisions within your own kind. Pack against pack, old grudges, walls built of pride and fear. I thought of my grandmother's teachings, of the stories she'd told me. Where there is division, there is weakness. Where there is unity, there is strength. The greatest healers know that all bodies, human or wolf, function the same. When parts work against each other, the whole suffers. The silence that followed was profound. Even the fire seemed to still for a moment. Then King Alaric leaned forward slightly, his expression unchanged, but something new in his eyes, interest perhaps, or recognition. The first trial is complete, Elder Orion announced. The candidates will now rest before the second trial at midnight. As the gathering dispersed, I felt a presence beside me. I turned to find King Alaric standing there, towering over me. "Walk with me, Alara," he said. It wasn't a request. The pups followed as he led me away from the stone circle, into the shadows of the ancient forest. The forest seemed to part for him as we walked, moonlight filtering through the canopy in silver ribbons. King Alaric moved with silent grace despite his size, his presence making the woods feel simultaneously safer and more dangerous. I followed, the sacred pups trotting alongside us, Onyx staying closest to my side. Neither of us spoke. The silence stretched between us, filled with the night sounds of the forest, owl calls, rustling leaves, the distant howl of wolves. We walked until we reached a small clearing where a stream cut through the forest floor, its water gleaming like liquid silver in the moonlight. King Alaric stopped at the edge of the water. "You speak of division as if you understand it," he said finally, his voice deep and controlled. "Yet you are human, living among wolves. You are the division." I gazed at the flowing stream, gathering my thoughts. "Perhaps that's why I understand it," I replied softly. "I've lived my entire life on the boundary between worlds. Tell me about your grandmother," he commanded, turning to face me. In the moonlight, his features seemed carved from stone, his silver blue eyes almost luminous. My hand went instinctively to my pendant. "She raised me after my parents died when I was small. She taught me about herbs, about healing, about finding strength in gentleness." I paused, memories washing over me. She never spoke of werewolves, not directly, but her stories. They were always about balance, the sun and moon, strength and compassion, power and wisdom. "And your village?" His question was careful, measured. The pain surged fresh, as if the attack had happened yesterday rather than weeks ago. "Destroyed. Everyone killed. I only survived because I was in the forest gathering night-blooming herbs." My voice caught. When I returned, everything was burning. "My grandmother, she found me at the edge of the village. She was already wounded, dying. She gave me the pendant, told me to run, to remember." I looked up at him, suddenly fierce despite my fear. "They weren't rogues, were they? Not truly. Someone sent them, looking for something. For this." I touched the crescent moon at my throat. A muscle tightened in King Alaric's jaw. "What do you know of the Great War?" he asked instead of answering. "Only what I've heard in whispers. That it devastated the packs. That you lost your family and took the throne." "I lost more than family," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I lost trust. In my advisors, in the other alphas. Even in the old ways. He gestured toward the pups. This selection, it was not my choice. It was forced upon me by the Council of Elders, who believe a king needs a Luna to rule effectively. His lips curved in a humorless smile. And yet, here you are, chosen by all 20 sacred pups, wearing the pendant of the ancient healers. I don't understand what that means, I admitted. Neither do I, he said, surprising me with his honesty. But I intend to find out. He turned abruptly, heading back toward the pack house. The second trial approaches. You should prepare. Wait, I called after him. You brought me out here for a reason. What aren't you telling me? King Alaric paused, his broad shoulders tense. The pendant you wear, he said without turning. My mother had one exactly like it. Before I could respond, he was moving again, striding through the forest with purpose. The pups nudged me to follow, and I did, my mind reeling with new questions. We returned to the pack house in silence. At the entrance to the guest wing, King Alaric left me with a single nod, disappearing down a corridor without another word. The pups remained with me, following me back to my room. Inside, I found Nora waiting, her expression concerned. The king himself escorted you? She asked, rising from where she'd been sitting beside the window. That's unprecedented. Everything about this situation seems to be unprecedented, I replied, sinking onto the bed. Onyx jumped up beside me, resting his head on my lap. Nora, he said his mother had a pendant like mine. Nora's eyes widened. Queen Lyra, she whispered. She was rumored to have healing abilities, though few outside the royal family knew for certain. She died in the Great War, along with King Alaric's father and younger siblings. What exactly happened during the war? I asked. No one seems willing to speak of it clearly. Nora sat beside me, her voice dropping to a near whisper. 5 years ago, the 5 major packs lived in an uneasy truce. Alaric's father, King Matthias, sought to unite them through stronger alliances. Some opposed this, preferring isolation and the old ways of territorial competition. She glanced toward the door before continuing. There was to be a great summit. All 5 alpha families gathered at the ancient temple in the center of the territories, but it was a trap. An explosion killed most of the royal families, leaving only a few survivors. Alaric was not present. He'd been sent on a mission to the northern borders. When he returned to find his family murdered, his wolf went mad with rage. He hunted down those responsible, I guessed. With a vengeance that still haunts the territories, Nora confirmed. He united the surviving pack members under his rule, creating the first true kingdom of werewolves in centuries, but at a cost. She looked toward the window, at the moon now high in the night sky. He rules with strength, but without the balance a Luna would provide. Without heart. A knock at the door interrupted us. Lady Freya entered, her elegant features composed. The second trial begins, she announced. The trial of compassion. This time, I was led not to the stone circle, but to another part of the pack house I'd never seen. A long hall with high ceilings and walls lined with ancestral portraits. The other candidates were already there, standing in a line before a raised platform where King Alaric sat, flanked by Elder Orion and several pack leaders. Before the platform knelt 5 werewolves, 3 men and 2 women, heads bowed, hands bound behind their backs. These wolves have committed crimes against the pack, Elder Orion explained. Each candidate will hear one case and determine the punishment. A Luna must balance justice with mercy, strength with compassion. One by one, the candidates stepped forward. They heard tales of theft, of challenge to authority, of broken oaths. Their judgments were harsh but fair, mostly. Some seemed eager to prove their strength, ordering punishments that made even the guards wince. When my turn came, the final prisoner was brought forward, a young woman hardly older than myself, her eyes downcast, her posture defeated. This wolf, Elder Orion announced, was caught attempting to flee the territory with pack secrets. She intended to sell information about our defenses to the southern pack in exchange for protection for herself and her younger brother. The hall filled with murmurs of outrage. Betrayal was among the gravest crimes in werewolf society. What do you have to say? I asked the young woman directly, ignoring the formal procedure the others had followed. She looked up, surprised to be addressed. My brother is ill, she said, her voice barely audible. "The Southern Pack has a healer who specializes in his condition. We were denied permission to seek treatment there." "Why?" I pressed. "Because our father died in the Great War, fighting against King Alaric's forces," she answered, a flicker of defiance crossing her features. "We've been marked as disloyal ever since." I turned to King Alaric, whose expression remained impassive. "Is this true?" A tense silence fell over the hall. No one questioned the king so directly. After a moment, he inclined his head slightly. "Her father chose the wrong side. Consequences carry through bloodlines. That is our way." I looked back at the young woman, seeing the fear in her eyes, but also the determination. She had acted out of love and desperation, not malice. "May I examine her brother?" I asked, addressing both the king and Elder Orion. The elder looked taken aback. "That is not part of the trial." "Nevertheless," I insisted, "I cannot judge justly without understanding the full situation. If I am to balance justice with mercy, I need to know if her claims are true." King Alaric's eyes narrowed, but after a long moment, he nodded. "Bring the boy," he commanded a nearby guard. While we waited, I knelt before the young woman. "What is your name?" I asked quietly. "Mira," she whispered. "My brother's name is Darren. He's only 10. What are his symptoms?" "Fever that comes and goes, weakness, pain in his joints that keeps him from shifting properly." I recognized the description immediately. Moonflower syndrome, rare but treatable with the right herbs. The guards returned, carrying a small, frail boy. His face was flushed with fever, his breathing labored. I approached him, ignoring the murmurs from the watching wolves. "Hello, Darren," I said gently. "I'm Alara. I'm a healer." The boy's eyes, glazed with fever but the same warm brown as his sister's, found mine. "Are you going to help Mira?" he asked weakly. "I'm going to help both of you," I replied, placing my hand on his forehead. The heat of his skin confirmed my diagnosis. I turned to face King Alaric and the elders. "This boy has moonflower syndrome. I can treat him here, with herbs from your own gardens. There's no need for him to go to the Southern Pack." I stood straight, meeting the king's gaze directly. "My judgment is this. Mira will work under my supervision in the healing hut for 1 full moon cycle as penance. Her brother will receive treatment, and both will be given the chance to prove their loyalty through service rather than punishment." The hall went silent. I had not only questioned the king, but proposed a solution that challenged the very notion of inherited guilt. King Alaric stood, his imposing height making everyone in the room seem small by comparison. He stepped down from the platform, approaching until he stood directly before me. I forced myself not to step back, though every instinct screamed to retreat from the predator before me. "You would defy our ways," he said, his voice low enough that only those closest could hear. "Challenge traditions that have kept our packs strong for generations." "I would heal what is broken," I replied, equally quiet. "Isn't that what you brought me here to do?" Something flickered in his silver blue eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw grief there, quickly masked. "The human candidate has spoken," he announced to the hall, his voice carrying to every corner. "Her judgment stands. The trial of compassion is complete." As the prisoners were led away, Mira looked back at me, her eyes filled with gratitude and wonder. The other candidates stared in shock or outright hostility. Lady Freya approached, her expression carefully neutral. "The final trial will begin at dawn," she informed me. "The trial of courage." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You've caught his attention, human. Few have managed that since the war." Her eyes flicked to the pups, still faithfully surrounding me. "Be careful what you awaken in him. Not all sleeping beasts should be roused." With that cryptic warning, she swept away, leaving me surrounded by sacred pups and unanswered questions as the night deepened toward dawn. I was escorted back to my room, the sacred pup still in faithful attendance. Sleep seemed impossible with the final trial looming at dawn. Yet exhaustion pulled at me. I lay on the bed, Onyx curled against my side, and closed my eyes. intending only to rest for a moment. Dreams came instantly, vivid and strange. I stood in a meadow filled with moonflowers, their silver-white petals open to the night sky. A woman walked toward me, her blonde hair catching the moonlight, her face both familiar and unknown. "You wear my pendant," she said, her voice like water over stones. "Who are you?" I asked, though somehow I already knew. She smiled, sad and gentle. "You stand at the crossroads, little healer. The path ahead divides and reunites. Remember, the smallest flower holds the strongest medicine." I woke with a start, dawn light filtering through the windows. Onyx was standing on the bed, nudging my face with his cold nose. The other pups were already alert, pacing restlessly around the room. A knock at the door preceded Nora's entrance. Her face was grave. "The final trial," she said without preamble. "It begins now." I rose, still dressed in the clothes from the previous night. "What is the trial of courage?" I asked, remembering Lady Freya's warning. "It tests not just bravery, but will," Nora explained, handing me a simple outfit of leather and wool. Practical clothes for the outdoors. The ability to face fear and continue forward. Each Luna candidate must demonstrate the courage necessary to stand beside the Alpha King. I changed quickly, securing my grandmother's, Queen Lyra's, pendant around my neck. As I followed Nora through the corridors of the pack house, the sacred pups formed their now familiar protective circle around me. Outside, the first golden rays of sunlight were just breaking over the eastern mountains. The air was crisp with morning dew, and the promise of autumn. We headed not toward the stone circle or the great hall, but toward the edge of the territory, to the very border of North Shadowlands. The other candidates were already there, along with what seemed like the entire pack gathered to watch. Elder Orion stood on a raised platform, King Alaric beside him, his massive frame silhouetted against the dawn sky. "The trial of courage," the elder announced as I took my place in line with the others, "will test not just the bravery of our candidates, but their connection to the sacred pups, the future of our pack." He gestured to the forest beyond the border markers. "Beyond our territory lies the Fade, the haunted woods where spirits of fallen wolves are said to roam. Each candidate will enter the Fade, accompanied by their chosen sacred pup. They must retrieve a token from the heart of the woods and return by midday." Murmurs rippled through the gathering. The Fade was forbidden territory, avoided even by the bravest pack warriors. Legends told of wolves entering and never returning, or worse, returning changed, shadows of their former selves. "Each candidate may select one pup to accompany them," Elder Orion continued. "Choose wisely, for the pup will be your only companion in the darkness." One by one, the candidates stepped forward. Most of the pups had shown little interest in the other women throughout the trials, but a few approached when called, somewhat reluctantly joining their chosen candidates. When my turn came, I hesitated. All 20 pups had followed me faithfully since the beginning. How could I choose just one? Before I could decide, Onyx stepped forward, his black fur gleaming in the early light. The other pups sat, watching expectantly, as if this had been decided long ago. "The human candidate has chosen," Elder Orion announced, though in truth, it seemed Onyx had done the choosing. King Alaric descended from the platform, approaching the line of candidates. He carried a small pouch, from which he withdrew 20 small crystals, each glowing faintly with an inner light. "These will guide you to the center of the Fade," he explained, his deep voice carrying easily across the gathering. "Follow their glow. When you reach the heart, you will find tokens hanging from the branches of the ancient oak. Take one and return." He placed a crystal in each candidate's hand. When he reached me last in line, his fingers brushed against mine. A brief electric contact that sent a shiver up my arm. His eyes met mine, searching for something. "The trial of courage reveals truth," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Remember who you are in the darkness." With that cryptic statement, he rejoined Elder Orion on the platform. A horn sounded, signaling the beginning of the trial. The candidates moved forward, crossing the boundary markers into the Fade, each accompanied by a single pup. I took a deep breath and followed. Onyx trotting confidently at my side. The moment we crossed the border, the world seemed to change. The air grew thick and heavy, the light dimming despite the rising sun. The trees here were different, gnarled, ancient, their bark black as coal, their branches reaching like desperate fingers toward the sky. The crystal in my palm pulsed with blue light, pointing deeper into the woods. I followed its guidance, trying to ignore the whispers that seemed to float on the mist curling around my ankles. Time behaved strangely in the fade. The sun remained visible through the canopy, but it didn't appear to move across the sky. The forest floor twisted and turned, paths appearing and disappearing, leading me in circles despite my attempts to maintain direction. "We need to focus, Onyx," I murmured to the pup, who stayed pressed against my leg, his warm presence reassuring in the otherworldly chill. "The crystal knows the way, even if we don't." Hours seemed to pass as we ventured deeper. Occasionally, I caught glimpses of other candidates in the distance, moving like ghosts between the trees, but no one came close enough to speak. Whether by design or by the strange properties of the fade, we each walked our path alone. The whispers grew louder as we approached what I sensed was the center. Words became distinguishable, fragments of conversation, of memory, of prophecy. "The healer returns, daughter of the crescent moon, the alpha's heart." I clutched my pendant, drawing strength from its familiar weight. "Just whispers," I told myself. "Just the wind." Finally, the crystal's pulsing grew more intense, and the trees parted to reveal a small clearing. In its center stood a massive oak, its trunk wider than 10 men standing shoulder to shoulder, its branches stretching up beyond sight into the mist. Hanging from the lower branches were small tokens, amulets of silver, each unique in design. I approached cautiously, aware that I was not the first to arrive. Several tokens were already missing. As I reached for one shaped like a crescent moon, so similar to my pendant that it couldn't be coincidence, a voice spoke from behind me. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, human." I turned to find Sylvia, the werewolf who had confronted me at the first ceremony. Her chosen pup, a small gray one, cowered behind her legs, clearly uncomfortable in the fade. "Only one candidate can take the crescent token," she continued, her voice sharp with disdain. "The others are meant for wolves. Take what belongs to your kind. Or better yet, take nothing and admit you don't belong here." I looked at the remaining tokens, then back at Sylvia. "If the crescent is meant for me, I'll take it. If not, I'll choose another." She laughed, the sound harsh in the unnatural quiet of the clearing. "You're either brave or stupid. Do you even know what these tokens represent? They're not just trinkets for a trial. They're ancient symbols of pack roles." She pointed to the crescent. "That one belongs to the true Luna, the alpha's mate. It's what I came for, and I won't let a human take it." Onyx growled, the sound surprisingly deep for his small size. He positioned himself between me and Sylvia, hackles raised. "The sacred pup protects you now," she sneered. "But what will protect you when you fail, when the pack turns against you? Humans don't survive long among wolves, little healer." "Is that a threat?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "A fact," she replied. "One way or another you'll leave these territories. Either running," she smiled, showing the edge of elongated canines, "or carried out." Before I could respond, a howl echoed through the fade, not the normal call of a wolf, but something twisted, pained, hungry. Sylvia's eyes widened. "Fade wolves," she whispered, fear replacing her hostility. "They shouldn't be active during daylight." Another howl answered the first, closer, then another, and another, until the air vibrated with their cries. "We need to leave," Sylvia said, grabbing her token, a diamond-shaped amulet, from the branches. "Now." "What are fade wolves?" I asked, reaching for the crescent token. "Spirits of wolves who died with vengeance in their hearts," she explained, already backing toward the path she'd come from. "They hunt the living, trying to reclaim what they lost." Her eyes darted nervously around the clearing. "They haven't been seen in decades. Not since the Great War," I finished for her, understanding dawning. "The wolves who died in the explosion." A shadow moved at the edge of the clearing, large, ghostly, with eyes that glowed an unnatural blue. Another joined it, then more, until we were surrounded by spectral wolves, their forms translucent yet somehow substantial, their growls raising the hair on my neck. Sylvia shifted form in a flash of movement, her human body replaced by a sleek gray wolf. Her pup whined in fear, crouching low to the ground. With a last look at me, a mixture of warning and what might have been regret, she bounded into the trees, her pup racing after her. I was alone in the clearing, surrounded by fade wolves, with only Onyx at my side. "We can't outrun them," I whispered to the pup, who pressed against my legs, his small body trembling but determined. "And I can't shift." The fade wolves began to close in, their movements silent despite the fallen leaves covering the forest floor. I clutched the crescent token in one hand, my pendant in the other, searching desperately for a way out. A memory surfaced, my grandmother's voice, teaching me about wolf's bane and silver sage, herbs that could ward against malevolent spirits. "The smallest flower holds the strongest medicine," I murmured, the words from my dream echoing in my mind. I knelt, pressing my palm against the earth, feeling for the energy that flowed beneath the surface. Even here, in this place of spirits and shadows, life persisted. Roots and seeds, and the memory of growth. "Please," I whispered, focusing on the warmth of my pendant, the connection to my grandmother, to Queen Lyra, to whatever lineage of healers had come before me. "Show me the way." The token and pendant seemed to grow warm in my hands, their silver surfaces beginning to glow with the same blue light as the crystal. The nearest fade wolf paused, its spectral head tilting in curiosity or confusion. Without understanding how I knew what to do, I held both crescent symbols aloft and spoke words that seemed to rise from some ancestral memory. "By moon and herb, by silver and bone, I claim safe passage through your realm." The glow spread from my hands, forming a circle of light around Onyx and me. The fade wolves prowled at its edge, testing the boundary with ghostly paws that recoiled from the blue radiance. One wolf, larger than the others, with a scar across its translucent muzzle, stepped forward, its spectral form solidifying as it approached. It stopped at the very edge of the light, its eyes fixing on my pendant. A voice that wasn't quite sound filled my mind. "Luna's blood. After so long. I need to return to the pack," I said, somehow knowing the spirit could understand me. "Please let us pass." The scarred wolf studied me for a long moment, then lowered its head in what seemed almost like a bow. "The true Luna returns. We have waited." It turned to the other fade wolves, communicating in some silent way. One by one they stepped back, creating a path through their ranks. A path that led not in the direction I had come from, but toward the rising sun. "This way leads home." The scarred wolf's voice echoed in my thoughts. "Remember us to our kin." Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, the circle of light moving with me. Onyx pressed close to my side as we walked the path the fade wolves had opened, their spectral forms flanking us like an honor guard through the twisted trees. The path through the fade seemed to both stretch endlessly and pass in an instant. The spectral wolves escorted us, their otherworldly forms weaving between trees that grew less twisted, less dark as we continued eastward. Gradually, the oppressive atmosphere of the fade began to lift, sunlight breaking through the canopy in golden shafts. Onyx trotted confidently beside me, occasionally looking up as if to ensure I was still following the correct path. The crescent token hung around my neck now, alongside my grandmother's pendant, both warm against my skin. When we finally emerged from the forest, the sun was high in the sky. Midday, the deadline for the trial. But we hadn't returned to the border where we'd entered. Instead, we stood at the edge of a meadow I'd never seen before, filled with wildflowers swaying in the gentle breeze. Across the meadow stood a lone figure, King Alaric, his powerful frame unmistakable even at a distance. He watched us approach, his expression unreadable. "You took a different path," he said when we reached him, his silver blue eyes taking in the 2 crescents I now wore. "The fade wolves showed me the way," I replied, still trying to process everything that had happened in the haunted forest. His gaze sharpened. "You saw the fade wolves, and they let you pass?" "More than that," I said. "They guided me, protected me." I hesitated, then added, "They spoke of the true Luna returning." A muscle tightened in his jaw. "Show me your token." I touched the silver crescent hanging beside my pendant. It called to me, like it was meant for me. King Alaric reached out, his large hand surprisingly gentle as he examined the token without removing it from my neck. "The crescent of the Luna," he confirmed, his voice low. "No candidate has chosen this token in generations. Most cannot even see it hanging among the branches." "Sylvia saw it," I pointed out. "She wanted to take it for herself." "She may have seen a token, but not this one." His fingers moved to my grandmother's pendant, identical in design to the token. "This pendant belonged to my mother. It was lost when she died in the explosion. My grandmother gave it to me before she died," I said, pieces beginning to fall into place. "But if it was your mother's, then your grandmother was Elise," he said, watching my reaction closely. "The royal healer, my mother's closest friend and confidant. She disappeared after the Great War. Many believed she had died with the others." Memories stirred, fragments of conversations overheard as a child, my grandmother's sadness when she gazed at the moon, her insistence that I learn the old healing ways. "She never told me," I whispered. "She raised me in a human village, away from werewolves. She never spoke of her past." "She was protecting you," King Alaric said, his expression softening slightly. "There were those who wanted to eliminate every connection to the old royal families. Your grandmother was wise to hide you among humans." A howl rose in the distance, a signal rather than a hunting cry. King Alaric tilted his head, listening. "The other candidates have returned," he said. "We must go back for the completion of the trial." Together, we walked across the meadow toward a trail I hadn't noticed before. Onyx led the way, his black tail held high like a banner. "The sacred pups chose you from the beginning," King Alaric said as we walked. "They've never unanimously selected a candidate before." "Why me?" I asked. "Because of my connection to your mother?" He shook his head. "The pups see what remains hidden to others: truth, potential, destiny. They recognize something in you that even I could not see at first." "And now?" I ventured, glancing up at his imposing profile. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something other than cold determination there. A warmth, carefully contained but undeniably present. "Now I begin to understand what they saw," he said quietly. We walked in silence after that, each lost in thought as we made our way back to the North Shadow territory. When we reached the border, we found the entire pack waiting, along with the candidates who had returned from the Fade. All eyes turned to us as we approached. The human girl and the Alpha King walking side by side. Elder Orion stepped forward, his aged face alight with something like wonder. "You found the path through the heart of the Fade," he said, "the sacred path that has been closed to our kind since the Great War." Whispers spread through the gathering. I noticed Sylvia standing with the other candidates, her expression a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect. Her token, the diamond she had taken, hung at her throat. "Each candidate, show your token," Elder Orion commanded. One by one, they stepped forward, displaying the silver amulets they had retrieved from the ancient oak. Each represented a different aspect of pack hierarchy, symbols of strength, wisdom, fertility, prosperity. When it was my turn, I stepped forward, the double crescents gleaming in the sunlight. A collective gasp rose from the pack. Elder Orion's eyes widened, and he dropped to one knee before me. One by one, the pack members followed suit, until only King Alaric remained standing, his gaze never leaving my face. "The crescent of the true Luna," Elder Orion announced, his voice thick with emotion. "Not seen for generations and never before claimed alongside the healer's pendant. The sacred bloodline returns." "Rise," I said, uncomfortable with their deference. "Please." "I don't understand what this means." Elder Orion stood, his weathered face solemn. "It means, child, that you are not just any human. You are the granddaughter of Elise, royal healer to Queen Lyra. More than that, you are the daughter of Aurora, the princess who was thought to have died as an infant, smuggled away by Elise during a time of unrest, hidden among humans for her protection." My legs nearly gave way beneath me. "Princess? That's impossible. My mother was a simple woman who died when I was young." My grandmother raised me. Your grandmother raised you as her own to protect you, Orion corrected gently. Aurora was too young when she gave birth to you, hardly more than a child herself. Elise took you both away, into the human world, to keep you safe from those who would destroy the royal bloodline. King Alaric moved to stand beside me, his presence steadying. Which makes you my cousin, he said, his voice carefully controlled. The last living member of my family besides myself. The revelation washed over me like a wave, threatening to drown me in its implications. I was not just a human healer. I was part werewolf, part of the royal bloodline, the granddaughter of the royal healer, and the daughter of a princess. The sacred pups knew, I whispered, looking down at Onyx, who gazed back with those two intelligent eyes. They recognized the bloodline. They recognized more than that, King Alaric said. He turned to address the gathered pack. For 5 years, I have ruled alone. I have united the territories through strength, but strength alone cannot heal what was broken. The selection ritual was forced upon me by tradition, yet it has revealed what even I could not see, that the balance we lost in the Great War might be restored. He faced me again, his silver blue eyes intense. The tokens chosen in the Fade reveal the truth of each candidate's heart and their place within the pack. You chose the crescent of the Luna, or rather, it chose you. But I'm not a full werewolf, I protested. I've never even shifted, because the ability lies dormant in you, Elder Orion explained. Those of mixed blood often need a catalyst to awaken their wolf. The sacred trials have begun that awakening. As if in response to his words, a strange warmth began to spread through my body, a tingling sensation that started in my chest and flowed outward to my limbs. My vision sharpened suddenly, colors becoming more vivid, scents more distinct. It's happening now, King Alaric said, recognition in his eyes. Your first shift approaches. Fear and excitement course through me in equal measure. What do I do? Don't fight it, he instructed, his voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. Let your wolf come forward. She has waited a long time to be free. The gathered pack backed away, forming a circle around us. Onyx remained at my feet, watching expectantly as the warmth turned to fire in my veins. I fell to my knees as my bones began to shift, rearranging themselves in a process that should have been painful, but instead felt like coming home. In moments that seemed both eternal and instantaneous, I changed, my human form giving way to something new, something powerful and wild. I stood on 4 legs, my senses overwhelmed with the richness of the world around me. I could smell the excitement of the pack, hear the beating of 100 hearts, feel the earth beneath my paws with exquisite clarity. King Alaric shifted beside me, his massive black wolf form making even the largest pack members seem small by comparison. His silver blue eyes remained the same, now looking down at me with unmistakable pride. You are Silver, his voice echoed in my mind, the telepathic communication of werewolves now open to me. Like your grandmother, the Queen. I looked down at my reflection in a nearby puddle, seeing a silver-white wolf with eyes the same green as my human form. Smaller than Alaric, but sleek and strong, with the crescent markings of the royal bloodline visible in the fur around my eyes. The Luna returns. Elder Orion's voice joined the mental link, filled with reverence. The healing begins. One by one, the sacred pups approached, Onyx leading them. They surrounded me, their small bodies pressing close in welcome and acceptance. Their presence completed a circuit within me, connecting me to something ancient and powerful, the collective spirit of the pack itself. King Alaric moved closer, his massive wolf form circling mine. 5 years I have ruled through strength alone, his voice spoke in my mind. 5 years the territories have known only justice without mercy, power without healing. He stopped before me, lowering his head until our eyes were level. The sacred pups chose wiser than any of us knew. They found not just a Luna, but the last of my blood, the one who could help heal what was broken. In that moment, with the pack gathered around us and the sacred pups between, I understood what my grandmother had been preparing me for all along. Why she had taught me the healing arts. Why she had given me her pendant. Why she had made me memorize the old sayings. The smallest flower holds the strongest medicine. I was that flower, the last bloom of the royal bloodline, carrying within me the potential to heal not just wounds of the flesh, but the deeper injuries that had fractured the werewolf world. "What happens now?" I asked, testing my new ability to communicate mind to mind. Alaric's silver blue eyes held mine. "Now we rebuild what was lost, together." As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, the pack raised their voices in a unified howl, welcoming the return of balance to their world, celebrating the completion of the sacred trials. I lifted my voice with theirs, my wolf's howl joining the chorus. No longer the invisible human girl, no longer the outsider. I had found my true place, not just as Luna to the Alpha King, but as healer to a wounded kingdom, guardian of a new future where human and wolf could stand as one. Onyx pressed against my silver fur, his small form vibrating with satisfaction at a mission completed, a destiny fulfilled. The smallest flower had found its garden. And from this day forward, it would bloom.